everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day. This is March the 17th. This is the Budget and Finance Committee. I'm going to call this meeting to order. My name is Ann Becknell, and I'm the treasurer of this committee. Please join me, if you can, in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We do have a quorum of the Budget and Finance Committee here today, and I'm going to read the meeting procedures statement. The governing board and its committees conduct all their meetings in compliance with Arizona Planned Community Association open meeting laws per ARS 33-1804 and in concert with RCSDW bylaws, policies, and standing rules. Parliamentary procedures as outlined in the most recent edition of Robert's Rules of Order will be followed in all meetings as appropriate, consistent with Bylaw 3.07, Procedures for Owner-Member Meetings, and Standing Rules number 2 and 3. Thank you very much. First item of business is going to be to talk about the approval of the minutes from the March 3rd meeting. And I think I have a comment from one of the committee members about that.
Yeah, just a quick comment on in section 3.03, second paragraph reads, public play versus member guest fees were recognized as having a wide variance. There's no variance, so we just need to change it to recognize as having no variance.
All right, thank you very much, Dave. Anybody else have any other comments or changes they'd like to make to the minutes of the meeting? Seeing none, we'll ask Karen to make those adjustments to the minutes and repost them for us. Thank you very much, Dave. Okay, moving right ahead, we're going to move right into the financial review with Cliff.
Good morning, Director Becknell, and good morning, community. I'm going to present the February year-to-date financial results. And happy St. Patty's Day. I'm sad to say I did not wear any green. Don't tell my mom. Okay, so starting out with the February results compared to budget, we are right on budget overall at $3.316 million. On the expense side, favorable $67,000. We got some just timing on some things. Wages and benefits are tracking really with budget right now. Of course, we will always have turnover, and so we'll always have open positions in the operating budget on a month-to-month basis. But overall, pretty much right on budget for the month at $1,034,000 versus a budget of $966. Looking at prior year, pretty much right on with prior year, a little favorable at $8,000. Switching to year-to-date versus budget on the revenue side, pretty much right on budget, $72,000 favorable on $19.8 million. Looking at the expense structure, favorable $1.1 million. We'll see the wages and benefits. We should carry just about all of that. Utilities, we'll see that pull back a little bit with the higher than normal temperatures, but we'll continue to track those. On the landscape maintenance side, those are coming, and unfortunately, not being able to pre-purchase a lot of the chemicals and fertilizers early on in the year is really going to hurt us right now with what's going on in Iran, with the conflict in Iran right now. So we'll be fortunate to hold budget there. We do have built in that $278,000 favorable is $80,000 in seed, and the seed, we've purchased all of our seed for the year. So if there is any additional costs on the chemicals and fertilizer side, we could offset it with those seed savings in that line item. But we'll continue to watch that, and then pretty much right on budget throughout. I mean, we'll see as the year goes on the other expense categories. overall, 1.25. We broke the we're in the black, so 427,000 in operating excess right now through February. Compared to prior year, pretty much right on, about $500,000. Again, timing on expenses like chemicals and fertilizers is really what's driving that favorability to prior year. So overall, two of the big categories we look at is wages, benefits, and landscape repairs. And we talked about those chemicals and wages and benefits that are in the budget. So now we switch to the capital related section. 353,000 favorable for the month. Pretty much right on with our other categories like APF fees. We hit our budget for the month for APF fees. We're still tracking a little bit behind last year, 30 behind last year, 20 behind budget. March is looking pretty good right now, so we'll see that. We'll see how that goes as we work throughout the year. We did have unrealized gain and valuation change of 340,000 for the month of February. March is not looking very good right now, again, with what's going on in the market and what's going on in Iran and the price of oil. So we'll keep an eye on that for the year. Compared to prior year, overall for the month, pretty much right on budget with prior year, favorable in APS by 20,000, which was budgeted. Year to date, $2 million ahead, and a lot of that's simply because of the unrealized gains that we've had in our portfolio, and the investment income is looking pretty good too. Overall, a little bit behind on APS. I talked about we're 20 behind budget, 20 transactions, approximately behind the budget, what we budgeted. But again, we'll keep an eye on that. I think we'll close that gap before the end of the year based on projections and what's happening right now. But we'll just have to see. And then compared to prior year, again, in the investment income, looking much better than prior year, which was pretty good in prior year. So again, that's really out of our control. We just kind of stick to the plan there, and hopefully things will continue to progress positively. So 947,000 and versus 947,000 valuation positive increase in that reserve fund compared to prior year, and a little behind in transactions at 31 behind, 5% behind prior year. We are at budget, and I'm sorry, 6,000 favorable in revenue simply because of the increase. So overall, 3.2 million at a budget and 1.8 million ahead of prior year in the capital section, or overall, excuse me. So now switching over to the capital expenditures, 5.148 million in the budget this year. 4,888,000 is what we anticipate to spend at approximately $260,000 savings in our capital improvement budget. So again, we got line item totals here. The highlighted items are completed items, and the highlighted green light items are favorable to budget, and the highlighted blue items are unfavorable to budget. So called out, but overall 260,000 favorable to budget. And some of our over $100,000 items that we have budgeted for this year, this hasn't changed since last month in terms of what's been completed and what hasn't been completed, but this is a listing of those items and which vendors we're using. And then the allowances summary. Last month we had a go to a facts and findings for a well pump at Desert Trails, and that was approximately $110,000 to repair, the $109,000 to repair that. We also had to move up on the reserve schedule the Beardsley pool deck. It has a rough finish on it, and we were starting to see some slips over there, so we had to shut it down, and we had to move that up. We actually had that set for next year to do in the capital improvement budget, but we had to move that up to this year and get that done. So we completed that as well last month, and then we had a waterproofing issue over the sports pavilion that we had to take care of, and then finally there's a huge exhaust machine for dust in the wood shop, and we had to replace all of the bags in there. Again, we had those on the reserve study for next year. We had 2 bags ripped, and when you go to replace those bags, there's 100 bags, and when you go to replace those, you do them all at once. So we moved that up on the reserve and did those. So I'm calling those out to just let you know that the items that we spend allowance funds, generally speaking, 90% of the time are just items on the reserve study that we have to move up because we don't get the useful life. All right. So overall, it's all about the fully funded balance percent. It's all about the reserve fund. So overall, we're anticipated, we budgeted 47%. We're well on our way to that. Again, the reserve fully funded balance changes. We add things, we increase values to that reserve fund on a daily basis. We make changes if we decide to do a pool deck or move up a pool deck or change how we're going to cover a pool deck. Or if we decide that we're going to move up the bunker projects into the irrigation projects and move out the turf. There's lots of things, dynamics that happen within that reserve study on a daily basis. So that's why I don't report it monthly, because it just changes. So, but we're well on our way to 47%, and in the budget we're projected, I believe, to be at 48% based on the projection that I put together for the budget. So anyway, that concludes the February presentation.
Thank you for that presentation. Do I have any questions from the committee? Rick?
It looks like we've got a lot of capital projects that haven't been started yet. Are those going to be done by the end of the year?
Yeah, I would say that there's nothing that hasn't really been started. Oh yeah, the Palm Ridge painting project is a big project that we haven't actually started yet. But will they be done by the end of the year? Most of them will be, but some of them will be carried.
Any other questions?
You know, in an operating budget, we don't carry any funds forward. Though any excess or any that all goes into the reserve fund. Capital is a different story. So if we have a capital item approved in the budget, we carry that, and we encumber. It's called encumber those funds.
Thank you. Any other questions? Not seeing any. We have no questions online. Do we have any questions from the audience? I see nobody coming to the mic, so we'll move forward. Thank you very much for that, Cliff. We had one financial policy, FI10, that we made some minor revisions to, but when we sent it off to the lawyers, they came back with a red line version, and I apologize. I thought I had a copy of it here with me, and I do not. We can bring it up online. It was included in the packet. It's attached to the meeting minutes, if you'd like to have a chance to go through. Basically, they tried to wordsmith, I would say, the language to make it more consistent with many of our other policies, which we're trying to do across the board. Otherwise, there were no changes with the process and procedures for how money is spent and what the limits are for any of those items. Did anybody have a chance to read that at all? Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, then I will move this forward to the governing board for approval at the next governing board meeting. Thank you very much. All right. Going on with the next one, we're going to ask our friend Herschel Workman to come up and give us a capital improvement projects update.
Good morning. No major updates since the last one. Courtyard renovation project, as you see on this particular slide, we're going to increase that budget to $125,000 for next year, and that's going to allow us to be able to buy some higher quality furniture in the amounts that we want to do to renovate the courtyard structure.
So the line item that says courtyard renovation, 90,000,
That will be increased to 125.
be increased to 125. All right. Thank you. The items that were listed on here, this is the point in time, I believe, for the committee to identify any specific items that they would like to see a more, a deeper review or discussion. And I know in the past they were sometimes called pullouts, but I think this is the point in time when we need to voice our opinions on any items that we think need more review and discussion before they're included or put forward to the governing board as part of the final budget. Is that correct? Yes, it is correct. Thank you for that. So if we can just take a moment to go through, there's been a lot of discussion, I know, about the range ball dispensers and the $100,000 to move the range ball dispensers. Are we still under the discussion that we would like to see that go through further review and discussion before it's added into the capital improvement project? I see agreement. Does anybody disagree with that?
You know, I don't disagree with it, but I want to give it a little bit more credit than $100,000 to move ball machines because they make noise. You know, the fact is, if I understand it more and what I'll be asking more about, this is for moving 3 machines. This is for protecting those machines, protecting existing machines, bringing electricity over to the ball range that doesn't exist right now. And it's not just because it goes bing, bing, bing and makes noise while people are trying to have a beer. In addition, you know, and I saw it again this week, they're up, some of them I'll talk, I think it was Echo Mesa, it's up on a level next to the parking lot, and of course, we all know balls drop down, they bounce down the stairs and they go across the board, and there's one of our members trying to chase a golf ball, there's another golf cart coming around. So I feel like I've heard a lot of ridicule or lightness shown, you know, $100,000 to move the ball machines because they make noise. I think there's much more to that, and it's not a ridiculous amount of money if you start breaking it all down. Move 3 machines, bring electricity across, protect them. I'm not sure if the ball elevator is included in that. There was some discussion. So, I mean, there's a lot more involved than just moving machine. And I'm kind of stuck in my head saying the right place for these machines are on the ball range. And then there's other good things that come from moving them. So when we discuss it, I just wanted to give it a little bit more credit than you know, they make noise.
Is there a way for you to give us a more detailed outline of what that $100,000 actually does? I mean, I think some of us might have thought that we're just going to pick them up off the patio, move them out in the grass, plug them in, and that's going to be it. But it sounds from what Chris has said that it's actually much more detailed than that.
Summed it up actually pretty well, that everything that he said was involved with that. We're going to move electrical out to the ranges for use for other items, not just the ball dispensers. We're going to move the ball dispensers. We have to put a cover over them to protect them from the sun. There's going to be elevators involved in bringing the balls up to the top of the dispenser for future use. So yeah, there is more to it than just moving them. And that's for 3 of them, then they're approximately about $33,000 a piece.
All right, thank you. So,
That was presented in the presentation. If you look at the details of the project, that's explained in there. Now, it's not given, we don't cost it out that way. We just say, hey, these are all the things that are included in this project. What we have been asked as well is to put a earmark an amount that we would need to cover the existing ball machines and that are out at the range currently. And so we're going to work on that to get that information together so the board is equipped with that information too. So maybe just the amount that to cover the existing machines that are out at the range, those can be done if approved. So we're gonna get that information together as well.
All right, I see we have Christine Novell at the mic.
Thank you. Just to add on to what you guys are talking about, the golf committee did discuss this a little bit too, the need to cover the existing machines. My understanding is that will be something that would be a separate project. In other words, the amount would be significantly less. The current project has been discussed a lot. I just wanted to remind you of Chairman Becknell's original guidance to you all, which is that really what you're identifying is a need for the governing board to look a little harder at this. You don't have to take a position necessarily, one or the other. So again, just wanted to remind you all that this has been in discussion now since October. I think you guys have made your position, the golf committee, other committees have made their position clear, just to kind of make it a little easier on you. You don't have to complete an in-depth analysis. I believe the golf committee is doing that too, if it helps.
Thank you for that. So at this point, I guess the discussion I'm asking, I have a question. Yes, Bill.
I just want to make a comment on how far we have come. There are still golf courses where you get a bucket of balls from the pro shop. They fill it up there. Back in Madison, where I played all the time, we got a bucket from the pro shop. We walked out to the bin, we filled up the bucket, and we walked out to the range. None of this was automated. None of this was paying at the range. None of this was, so we have really advanced well beyond what's necessary. So what we really do have is a large want, perhaps more than a need. So I think everyone should put in perspective exactly what these ball dispensers really are.
Thank you for that, Bill. Anyone else? Don.
I would like to have a little bit further discussion on the entry door replacement of the Stardust Theater. I have a letter here.
Can we come back to that one in just 1 second?
Sure.
We'll kind of take these in order for a moment
All
if we can. Thank you. We will come back to that. So at this moment in time, we would like to ask the governing board to do some more review and discussion about these range ball machines before we put a stamp of approval on that. Is that a general consensus that I'm seeing? I see yes, yes, yes across the board. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll mark that item. I think the other items, the website redesign, the assisted listening, assisted living, yeah. The lapidary, and the other items are okay with us as we stand today. Is that correct? Okay, perfect. So now we'll move forward, if you will, then to the next set of items. So, in this next group of items, and I know that Don has one specifically he would like to talk about. So, Don, I'll turn it over to you.
I would like to have a little bit more in-depth discussion of the moving the entry doors at the Stardust Theater. I have here a letter to the B&F committee from the president of Theater West. And I also talked with the president of Western Airs, and she agreed basically with the fact that we don't think that this is a need at all. The letter reads, "Dear members, we understand that significant investment in the Stardust Theater are under consideration. The Theater West Club is taking this opportunity to share our priorities. The new stage curtains will be much appreciated. Additionally, we ask your consideration of improving the lighting and sound system and safety lighting in the aisles and enlarging the bathrooms. We feel that expanding the theater foyer into the patio is of lesser overall value. Theater West Board thanks you in advance for your consideration." So we have two of the biggest users of the Stardust Theater And I do know that Dance Sensations also would like to have spotlights that move rather than are stationary for a lot of their dances. And so I'd like to get a little bit more in depth as to why the entry door replacement at $35,000 is needed.
So the doors and the current structures have to be replaced. And so there have been requests over time that if we were going to do that, or when we did that, if we could move them out to where the ticket booth is, where it sits. So they're kind of cut back into the ticket booth.
I know.
So if we could move those out, it would create more space in the foyer. So this is one of those projects. It's on the repair and replacement because it's set to be done anyway,
If
regardless.
you need to replace the doors, but moving them out, I think, is wrong, and so does the theater. And I'll tell you one reason why, if I may. I am a
Sure.
house manager quite often for the theater. I can stand back at the wall where the booth is, and I can see both doors. They go out further, and I can't see them. If we lock those doors, we only open them half hour before a show. They get locked when I'm a house manager while the show's going on, because I don't want people walking in. They gotta hit a door, and I gotta be able to see it. I don't have to run from one side to the other. I will have to do that when they go out.
So this isn't a choice between doing the bathrooms or doing some of those other projects that they want or doing the doors. It's not a choice.
Okay.
So the justification for not doing the doors can't be because, well, we'd rather spend it over there and do this.
If
We're
you need
gonna,
to redo the doors, redo the doors, but moving
Yeah.
them out is not necessarily a need at this point in time, according to the.
it doesn't,
the
co-
people
it
that use
doesn't, it does, it adds minimal cost to the project. And
Really?
I can get the full costing for you, but it doesn't add a lot of cost at all. It literally is a very small percentage of the 35,000 to do both of those doors on that side. So it doesn't add a lot to the cost, yet it enhances the square footage of the space. So that's why we're recommending doing that. And we've had many requests for it as well. So that's why it's in the budget.
When you say you have many requests for it, you mean the doors themselves, not moving it out?
No, moving it out.
Who's requesting it?
Well, I don't-
Because
I-
neither
yeah.
one of the biggest users is.
Okay, I'm just telling you, we've had requests that have come into facilities for that. So that's why we're proposing it. Again, it doesn't add a lot of cost, it enhances the square footage, and it's got to be done anyway. So that's why we're proposing it. And it's not, we're not going to not do the bathrooms because we're doing that project. So those bathrooms are going to get done eventually when they come up on the reserve study. Same thing with the other projects. If the Theater Club and the Theater West, and we feel that there's some additional things that need to get done in there, we'll put those in the budget. And so we won't say we're not going to do those because we're doing those doors. So I just want to reiterate that's just a way to enhance that space for very minimal dollars. It's news to me that they're not recommending doing it. I didn't realize that, but those have come through to our operations department, Sabrina, and Russ has been wanting to do that for a while. And we always said we would do it once we had once the doors came up on the reserve study. So if there's a strong reason not to do it, I'm not saying that we wouldn't not do it. We just haven't heard one yet.
Well, as I said, the only reason that I say it is from a standpoint of having to be house manager, I can't see both doors when they're moved out. I have to run from one side to the other if they rattle, because somebody wants in. And we have people that come in late for shows. We had one last night that came in an hour late. We made them sit in the back until they had intermission. With no other choice. You can't have somebody walking down to the front row, you know, when the actors are up there on the stage acting. It interrupts everybody in the theater.
Okay, so that sounds like an item that needs to have a little bit more review and discussion.
As
before
long
a
as your
final
committee-
decision is made.
Yeah, as long as your committee has consensus that you all agree that you just refer that on to the governing board, and if the governing, and that's where the additional information will go. It doesn't come back to this committee. This is the last time you'll talk about this list.
That's right.
All right, and the only other thing I wanted to add, I'm sorry to interrupt you. So for anyone at any facility, Dawn, if you could, please, this is for you. So for the clubs, Dawn, I'm speaking to you, actually. For all those future requests that are not repair and replace, brand new lights, et cetera, the time that clubs will be participating is right at the start of July, I believe. So please funnel that back to your clubs so that they're aware they should submit those requests for new funding, and that'll come in and be considered through next year's charter clubs and through properties, just so that you're aware. But today, we're all looking at just the current list as it exists, so just wanted to interject that and make sure that your clubs were aware, right? That in addition to repair and replace, if there's something brand new, that's the time, not now, but in July for next year. I know it's a bit of a time delay, just so you know.
Thank you, Christine.
And I'll just add something. So the theater itself, a lot of the equipment and the things that have been purchased in the theater over time have been done by the club.
That's right.
And they're large one-time purchases that have long, useful lives on them. And what we're finding is in the reserve study, because the clubs were purchasing these things, they're not in the reserve study. And now the club isn't as strong or doesn't have the funds that it once had. And so we're adding things to the reserve study from the theater. And so I encourage you, we just did a walkthrough this spring, earlier on in the year, January, through there to make sure we had added some stuff to the reserve study: sound, lighting, the curtains we talked about, the flooring we already had. But we've had some discussions, the safety lighting, those types of things. So encourage the club to get with Tia, and make sure that we're not missing anything. We can get that list to them and make sure we have it up there and we have it all set to get done. Because we've taken over a lot of the programming in there operationally. We've added staff to do that, to be able to make sure that the facility is available, and because the volunteerism has gone down and just the participation from the club perspective has gone down, but the need for the community wanting to do events in there is still there. So we've taken a lot of that over, but yeah, so I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Cliff. Thank you very much. So the line item amount is for $35,000 to replace the doors. Bill, do you have a question?
Quick comment, the issue of visibility was brought up. I think that should probably be added if there's going to be a problem with visibility. If you do this door removal and move, perhaps you add that to the project and figure out how it's going to be visible for the show manager.
Yeah, the way I'm
Cameras,
understanding
mirrors.
it is you stand basically where the ticket booth is, back to the wall, and you can see currently, right, but when you extend it out, so you just got to peek around and look.
Not that easy.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other questions? No questions? Do I have any consensus, one way or the other, about having this item slated for further review and discussion by the governing board? I'll start down there with you, Bill. Yay or nay? You're fine? Rick? Fine? Dave? Chris?
Yeah, I suggest a pull-out for more discussion.
Okay, so that's what we're saying, yes to having it pulled out for more discussion. Is that what you agreed? Okay. More discussion? All right, so we'll slate this item for more review and discussion by the governing board. Thank you. Are there any other items on this list that you would like to bring up for discussion? Rick?
Just one quick question. We're putting a lot of money into the fencing at the softball field and everything else. Does this finalize all of that? And we don't have a lot more left to do in that general area? Or do we have more coming in the future?
So this finalizes the majority of the fencing. We're not doing the backstops with this project. I don't know that the backstops will need to be done for some time, but yeah, this is the majority of the fencing is going to be taken.
The structure of the backstops will stay there. So when we do the backstop, it'll just be the chain link. It'll be a minimal cost. just like we're just doing on the fence down the baselines. That's just chain link. We're keeping all the existing structure. Yeah, but the back, we're gutting the outfield. That needs new posts and yeah, that needs, yeah. But yeah, for the most part, done.
All right. Any other questions about any other line items on the repair and replace budget? Bill? Chris? John?
On the platform tennis courts for $305,000, we've had a lot of discussion about that. I think our staff has said, or pulled it out, and the properties committee and the governing board have suggested to put it back in. And I'm uncomfortable with this project while we have a master plan project going on. It seems like a significant amount of money for a activity that has, at least we've been presented, a low number of members using it. I'm not comfortable asking to pull it out because that would delay it and it needs repair. But I'm wondering if, as a budget and finance committee, if we could just make a recommendation to the governing board that it doesn't start until the master plan is completed. My understanding is project is for the year starting in July, right? July 1 to June of the following year. To ask the start to be delayed till September or October, a few more months for a project that's been not done for many, many years, just to make sure that when the master plan comes out, that there isn't any inconsistency or that there isn't anything there that would say, well, maybe we shouldn't have done this large project.
Thank you, John. Anybody else have any comments about that? Yes?
I understand your concern, and I've had similar concerns. I have done as much as I can do an in-depth study of understanding platform tennis, the utilization, the number of courts are in the United States, that whole host of things that we had that discussion. I even went to look at what the villages have in Florida, and they have 6, and that was only until 2000 they actually had started to put them into place. I guess I'm of the opinion, and I've kind of come to the conclusion that these need to be redone. It is definitely an area that has to have improvements. So I'm not against some type of improvements. I just am concerned about doing 4 of them in which the utilization, I'm not sure, especially when I learned we're the only one in all Arizona. The platform part of it was developed from, I look historically, was to do so they could remove, because of snow. And we obviously don't have snow. And I looked at the villages, they don't have them heated either down there because there's no snow. So therefore, I'm just trying to make sure we're utilizing the space in the best fashion. I think that's sort of what you were saying, that are we best utilizing that area for what the needs are in the future are going to be, especially for sort of a real niche that is Northeast and Midwestern driven. It is not West Coast. There is not a lot of platform tennis in the West Coast. We don't have the numbers to base anything upon. I mean, we have a limited numbers. I take that back, Cliff, because you did present us with numbers the best you could to pull on that. And so I'm troubled by it, but I also feel we got to make the improvement. And so that's where I sit at on this whole project. I think it points to the fact that in the future, and this kind of goes to the master planning, the future is really going to depend upon how much data we can get on many of these decisions into the future. And I think that's, if there's anything I've learned from this, is that we have to have hard data to make decisions, because in the future, there's going to be shifting because of the age differences and have different interests. Some of these things we have right now may be not of interest to someone in 10 years from now. And I don't know how we'll make those decisions to make those operational changes simply based because we feel that way or we think that way. It's going to have to be hard driven with data. I think that's where the kind of conclusion I've done. So I'm not against them making the improvements there, but I think it points to an area which we have to focus more upon, not only the master plan, but how we begin to analyze these type of questions that will come forth in the future.
Any other comments? Nikki?
Yeah, I feel very similarly to these two gentlemen. And if you do look at the data that we do have, the overwhelming area of usage that has increased exponentially is pickleball. Okay, that's just a fact. So if you looked at, this is platform tennis, and this is pickleball. And so my issue with this is also that, yes, the courts need to be renovated in some fashion. However, the timing of it, including it here, does trouble me, because I think that in looking at the bigger picture, there may be, we may need to completely relook at what we do where in terms of pickleball, tennis, and this platform tennis. I think that we may have to look at it much more holistically in terms of not just usage, but where things are, where they're located, what makes sense for the organization. So again, they need to, we don't want to leave it without, we don't want to leave the place, we don't want to leave it so that it can't be utilized. But I think that we would be better served taking this, putting it into the master plan, and look at the whole sport area there holistically, as opposed to saying we're going to do this today. So at a minimum, I would say it should be pulled out and reviewed.
Thank you for that. I think we had one more question down here.
Yeah, I agree with the fact that, number one, it needs to be fixed. I reviewed it and it looks awful. Looks like a ghetto. Definitely not a standard that we want to have. When you talk about data on something like this, if you did that with pickleball, we probably wouldn't have pickleball here. Sometimes, you build it and they come. We're looking to attract people from the Midwest come here, and they do play that. I've never played the sport. Giving it a shot is not unreasonable.
Chris?
Yeah, I think it's real important for us. First of all, I agree, needs to be fixed, right? It looks terrible, needs to be fixed. I think it's real important to pay attention to our power users, our groups. In other words, the tennis, the gentleman who's here representing the tennis club or population explained that if that was repaired as a platform tennis, they could play red ball on it, and that there's a demand for both of those sports. I think we have to, data would be great, but I think we really have to listen to the people that are using it. And I kind of learned this from the properties meeting, where I got a real education about lighting on pool tables, right? I was real concerned about the aesthetics of the light, only to find out that the best shooters really cared about the fusing of the light and the shadows and all that kind of stuff like that. Those are the people we need to pay attention to, because if the light is correct for the power users, for the greatest, billiard players we have here, if it's right for them, it'll work for my grandkids, right? If the tennis is, platform will work for platform tennis, it's okay for red ball. To me, that's what kind of what I'm learning. We just heard Don talk about from his theater experience, some just an inside perspective. Not that we have to do one thing or another. I just want to focus, and I would, suggest also pulling it out so that we get people that actually use it to give us some additional insight that I probably didn't have before.
Thank you. Any other committee member comments? I see we have a guest at the mic.
David Bennett, rec card number 137887. As a liaison to tennis, and having been to a lot of meetings, there are only 10 or 12 people using it now. They have 75 that have said that if it's been repaired, they would be using it on a regular basis. Prior to COVID, they had hundreds of people using it on a regular basis. As it's deteriorated, the good players won't play on it because it's got cracks, the ball won't bounce right, and anything else. And so, you know, the timing is a different issue, but it needs to be done. And if they can repair it for for platform tennis, red ball tennis, which is up and coming, can utilize it as well. So it's part of it. As it degraded, the usage went down, and it was because of, it's not a sport anymore if you're playing on a surface that doesn't bounce true. So I just wanted to add those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Any other comments from the committee? Okay, so I'd like to reach a consensus on whether we should send this back to the governing board for more review and discussion, or we should put it through as accepted by this committee. Should I send it back to the governing board for review and discussion? No. Yes. Yes? Pardon?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
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 No.
Okay, so with that, since the overwhelming consensus was to send it back to the governing board for additional discussion and review, we'll go that direction. Thank you all for that input. Are there any other items on the repair and replace list that you think should be discussed? All right, so I guess we're ready to move on now to the golf.
Todd has an update he wants to give first.
Todd. Thank you, Todd.
Morning. Yeah, I have an update on the Stardust project. We got our bids in. Low bid was 6.3 million. Our estimated budget was 6.7 million. So that's good, a little bit under budget. The other thing too, on that Stardust project, I wanted to update, we've made some changes to the scope of the project. We've decided to go ahead and take out the turf conversion out of that project and move that into years where we have course closures as a kind of a standalone project. So one thing that we did add in though was the bunker, I think Cliff mentioned this, bunker sand replacement. We would do that at the same time.
Thank you. Does anybody have any other questions about the golf projects that are on the list? Chris?
What's the cost for the seed for that Tif-Tuf, for that course?
That runs about 14,000 per acre.
And how many acres do we have?
Well, in Stardust, we were looking at 54 acres of regrassing over there.
And we're still talking about doing it, just delaying it a year.
Yeah, just delaying it. You know, we started talking about it. We're looking at everything that we're going to do on that project. And in the through the bidding process, we went and potholed several areas throughout Stardust Golf Course, kind of see what kind of soil that we're having to deal with. Very rocky over there. So that tells me it's going to take a little more time to be pulling pipe over there at Stardust. And the other thing too, we can't resurface or returf those areas until they finish the irrigation project. So there's a really a good chance that we're not going to have the whole course finished or filled in by time opening. You know, the growing season ends probably in September. So if it's not filled in September, it's not going to start growing again until March, April, May. So that was really one of the deciding factors of moving that project out.
You know, that's good. I'm kind of relieved. I think it works out best for both of us. And again, Echo Mesa is our example, and it's slowly getting better, and I believe it's going to be fine. But it's nice to give us another year so we can sit there and feel real comfortable when we do it.
I'm confident that it's going to be a great turf for us out here. In fact, I talked to one of our members over at Grandview this morning, and he said he played it this weekend, and he hadn't played it for several weeks, and he said he saw a big improvement on that. And with these temperatures that we're having, I think every day it's going to get better and better.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Oh, thanks, Dave.
I just want to commend you on the decision to put new bunker sand in along with the project. I think if we can keep doing that and moving those bunker projects up a little more, it would benefit everybody in the course conditions as well. So thanks.
Great. Any other comments for, or questions for the golf list? All right, seeing none, then we will leave the list as it stands and we'll send it forward to the governing board for review. All right, and then the next list we have is the well pumps. No, let me put my glasses back on so I can read what I'm looking at here. Oh, these are the allowances. So on the list of allowances, are there any questions with regards to the items on the allowance list?
These are the hardware allowances, right? It's not the software per se, it's the hardware for the allowances for the IT stuff.
Oh, no, this is, so we do, on my February presentation, I had a summary of the allowance funds that we've spent year to date. So these are funds that are set aside for unplanned expenditures, capital expenditures that we have throughout the year. So, for example, the resurface at the Beardsley Pool, we had that on the reserve study. It was coming up next year. It needed to be done this year. So this gives us funds to do projects, to put projects in the capital improvement budget that haven't been specifically budgeted for because we don't get the useful life out of them, or we have an emergency, we have an ADA thing, we have a law change, we have a club need. That's what these allowances are for. In the operating budget, we have equipment and things for IT. That's all built in the operating budget. Now, there could be an IT need, which we have a category down there for IT. If something comes up that we need for some reason, if a server crashes or something, we need to be able to. So we do earmark some funds in the allowance funds for IT needs, but these are just various categories that we have or reasons for the we may need unplanned expenditures.
Thank you, Cliff.
Yep.
Dave?
Not to open a can of worms, but where does the replacing of the R.H. Johnson pool deck fall within years and within allowances, et cetera? Because I know it's coming up. So
Yeah, so R.H. Johnson was completed and was part of the 2022 budget and was completed in 2023, like June of 23. So it was in the 2022-2023 budget. It was completed in June of 2023. So we originally lifed that at 10 years because we were told that the rubber surface would last 10 years, and that's not the case. We're going to do a whole presentation on that on Thursday. So at the governing board, as far as when the pool decks are set for replacement and what the cost of those are, and so you'll be able to see that. But in terms of the capital improvement budget right now, there's no funds to replace that. If we decide to do just the coping, we could absorb that in our operating budget. That would be an operating budget item because we know that we would replace the pool deck either the next year or the following year, so it wouldn't be a 5-year useful life. And I believe the cost on that is $40,000 to $60,000, depending on which solution we go with. So I anticipate that we would probably do that in this year's operating budget, and then potentially we would probably put an addition to the capital improvement budget for next year for a pool deck. That's just my guess, but I'm thinking that it's such a high priority for the governing board and operationally for us. That's probably what's going to happen, but we still have to kind of vet that all out with the governing board.
What he said.
Thank you. I was just
And those were, that can has already been opened, so you're.
All right, so with that exception in mind, is there anything else regarding these
Yes.
capital
Yes,
allowances? I see none, so I can put these through to the governing board as accepted by our committee. Thank you very much. So we've identified the items that we think need further review and consideration. And we're ready to go on to the operating budget, Cliff.
Okay, so there's been much discussion about the operating budget, of course. Turn my mic off down there. And so today I wanted to give an update to the committee on the B&F committee on the conversations that have been had at the various committees and regarding the budget. So we had the bowling or the sports pavilion committee, and we also had the golf committee. So I wanted to give an update to this, the B&F committee on those conversations. And just wanted to also present some data that I presented at those committee that you haven't seen presented, and give you an opportunity to ask questions on that or have some thoughts or insights into that. So when it comes to dues, so one of the slides I presented at the governing board budget presentation was our 10-year dues increase percent compared to the inflation rate. So this just gives some context into historically what have we done. This goes back to 2018. So you can see historically our dues increases set above the inflation rate when it comes to the actual rate, the percentage rate. So I show that to show that inflation doesn't drive our budget per se. Obviously, it has a big part in the budget. But we put a whole working group together last year to talk about tying the dues increases to the inflation rate. And basically that committee came back and said, that doesn't make sense for us as a policy position because of the various factors in our budget. So, for example, the state changes every few years how they decide they're going to implement minimum wage increases. And right now it's tied to COLA, but in the past it hasn't. And then there's every once in a while they'll say, for us to compete with California and Nevada and for minimum wage employees, we need to increase our minimum wage. There was something on the docket a couple of years ago trying to increase it to $18 an hour. So, for us to tie our dues increases to the inflation rate is not something that makes sense for us. And historically, it never has, because when you look at our dues increases, they've consistently been above the inflation rate. In fact, when you see the times when we decide that we're going to implement a $0 dues increase, like in 2022, granted that was coming off of COVID, you can see what happened. Inflation rate went significantly higher, and we spent the next couple of years trying to make up ground. So I just wanted to show this, that this is we're in the sweet spot right now, and we think we're in a really good spot. And then this also indicates as well what happens over time. And you can see we're trending in the correct direction. We're on a downward slope and building our budgets based on what our actual needs are in the community and what our reserve fund needs are, and taking into modeling it out 5 years and looking at all the different things that impact us at the association on the reserve fund side as well as on the operating side. All right. So in the bowling, what we presented in bowling is currently we've got $142,000 in cash inflow for the association coming from the sports pavilion. There's some things that were presented in this budget that really tied to increased sales. We did put a rate increase in for beer for the sports pavilion because of all the things that happen at Lizard Acres. For example, in special events, we built in an additional $5,000 in special events for Lizard Acres to do, bands, to do small bands, to do trivia, maybe do, rock and roll bingo, things like that. We don't charge a cover there. We don't charge for those events. So that's an additional cost to Lizard Acres. And as well, just the whole renovation and all the things that we've done in there. So we implemented in this budget a 50-cent increase in the cost of beer for that. And now we sell 66,000 beers in there. So it's 66,000. That's just in the bar. We sell beer out in the concourse too. That's not including the concourse beer. But so the nice thing is we can generate an additional 30,000 revenue simply from, implementing that increase, which will help offset the additional cost, the additional labor that we have in there, and the additional things that we have in there. So that's one of the things. But just to give some perspective on bowling lineage, we were averaging about 290,000 games or lineage a year. And now last year we had 317,000. This year we're not going to hit that because we have a closure coming up here in April. And we had some various closures and things earlier on in the year that we had to do. But moving forward, we anticipate 319,000 next year. And so, bowling is really come off really well. That center gets a lot of use. It's not just from the bowlers, but, now we have the bar, the enhanced bar, the billiards area brings foot traffic in there. And so it's a vibrant, just a great place. And we've got the pin setters coming in April. So we're really excited about the potential for additional bowling and additional beer sales and all that to help cover the additional costs. And if we look at our bowling mix, we average about 68% league, 32% non-league bowling, and about 70-30 split. This year is 70-30 through January, but as we move throughout the year, we have a lot more open bowling and participation from our members, and as a percentage compared to league, we'll get back to that 68-32%. All right. So in golf, in the golf operating budget, golf is subsidized by the community. It always has been. And I want to show you a chart here later on to talk about what that subsidy has been over time. But typically, golf is subsidized to the tune of about 1.1 to 1.2 million a year. Now, if we hit our rounds and our mix is right, we can decrease that. Maybe one day we'll eliminate the deficit if we get the rounds where it needs to be. But keep in mind, when we put dues increases in, the golfers are dues paying members, so they're paying dues increases. So when you put a dues increase, they pay the dues increase. When you put a golf rate increase, they pay the dues increase and the golf rate increase. And if they golf more than once, they pay it more than once. So we're very conscientious about increases in the rates to all of our things here, whether it's beer, whether it's bowling or guest fees or range balls or whatever we talk about, because we know that members expect to pay discounted rates because they pay member dues. And that's just the fact. So when we put our budget together, we incorporate that. But we have golf coming at about 772,000 in subsidy, which is about 100 I think it's 170 per course, but it works out over 7 courses, 100 grand per course. But if we look at our total golf rounds, we have 320 in the budget. Last year was the first year we didn't hit 320,000 since pre-COVID or since COVID, and we really averaged about 300,000 rounds before COVID. Not even 280, 290, somewhere around there. So COVID really changed things in terms of golf rounds for us, which is pretty good. But over time, you can see what the golf rounds have done. You can also see what the contribution is in terms of member and non-member. And then if you look at the historical revenue, golf rounds haven't changed much. 323,000 rounds in 2023, 320 in 2027, yet revenue 9.63 million, revenue 11.4 million. So that goes to show that golfers have paid more to golf over time because the rounds haven't changed. In fact, they've actually gone down since 2023. So the golfers have paid increased fees and have covered increased costs when it comes to golf over time. It doesn't seem like a lot when you put a $3 increase or a $1 increase, but also keep in mind that they pay that every time they golf. They pay a one-time dues increase, and then they pay that increase every time they golf. So in terms, if you compare the two, if you put a $3 increase and they golf 20 times, they paid $60. If they paid a dues increase and it was $22, they paid $22. So they paid $82, and a member who doesn't golf pays $22. Okay, so I'm trying to make sure everybody understands that when we put rate increases in, we got to look at the whole picture. We got to look at the whole budget. So budgeted member and non-member golf. So in terms of golf rounds, this is the beautiful thing about golf. Our members make up 81% of the total golf rounds, which is amazing. Our non-members make up 19%. We can keep those rates down for those 81% because 28% of our revenue is being driven from our non-member golf and only 19% of the rounds, which is great. So every time we have a non-member golf here, it keeps the golf rates down. It keeps the subsidy down. It keeps dues down. So this is a really good chart because it's basically showing we're really getting a lot of bang for our buck for those 19% in rounds from our public. And then I wanted to show just as the historical subsidy of golf. So golf, again, 2014 to 2019, you could see it's averaging probably 1.1 million a year ish, maybe a little more. And you can see what's happened since we've hit over 320,000 rounds. You can see that golf has really been able to sustain itself much better with the increase in rounds and then with the increase in rates to cover the increased costs over the years. And then again, if we compare it to pools, compare golf to pools, you can see $250,000 per rec center on pools. And in this budget, we've got $110,000 per golf course in subsidy versus $250,000 per rec center and pools. So just to provide some context there in terms of, and this is the conversation we get in all the time. Well, I don't use that. Well, what do you use? Because everything you use is subsidized. It is. Even bowling. Bowling, yeah, it's great. It's turning $150,000 in cash outflow, but between the floors, the pin setters, Lizard Acres, billiards, I bet we put close to $2 million in that facility in improvements and repair and replacement. That's subsidized by dues and by APFs and all the other things. So everything here is subsidized. So again, overall, anticipate putting $8,336,000 in cash inflows, and then with the anticipated or the budgeted spend of $11,360,000, we'll have a negative impact to the reserve fund of $3,024,000, and then you can see what the impact is anticipated to be in the current modeling for the reserve fund, and then what the fully funded balance percentage would be based on what the reserve fund balance would be in those years. Okay, so funding for master plan, we presented to the governing board on last week at the workshop, and basically just kind of summarizing the models. We have approximately 3.6 million in potential master plan areas currently in the reserve fund, which is great. We've got 5.6 million currently in the modeling for new capital expenditures over the next 5 years. So all in all, we've got 9.2 million just currently as we sit for potential master plan to address some potential master plan needs if we go in those potential areas of Kuntz tennis courts social hall and library, and if we take the current modeled 5.6 million as well as the 3.6 million that we've have in those areas. That still gets us, that's this modeling right here. That's what this modeling is. That has that in there, built in already, which is wonderful. So now if we inject 6 million and an additional 6 million for new or master plan spending, how would we raise the funds to keep our FFB at 40%? And one option is to increase the dues by 20, increase the APF by an additional 300, and carry those for the next through 2031. And if we do that, we'll hold our FFB percent at least 40%, and we'll raise approximately 4.2 million in this model to carry that additional 6 million and hold the 40% in the FFB. And we'll pretty much essentially be at the same place that we would have been before, with approximately 50 million in the reserve fund and a fully funded balance of 78 million, 63% FFB percent. I think was it Chris? Did you say that you're basically spending an additional $100 over 5 years, $20 a year, to be able to potentially get what you want? And if you look at it that way, it's pretty I think people would say that's pretty palatable to spend $100 over 5 years to potentially get some things that you really want in the community that you don't currently have. And finally, the other option is we could look at maybe moving out, extending the irrigation projects, because we know that we have a large cash need over the next till 2035. And if we spread that spending out over time, could we hold the FFB percent? What would we need to do that? Well, we would only need an additional $5 over that same period of time, an additional $100 from APFs. It does extend the irrigation projects from 2035 to 2039. It does add an additional 2.3 million in project cost for those irrigation projects. It also adds inefficiencies from an operational perspective. I presented a slide at Gulf where we experienced a 38% decrease in kilowatt hours at Grandview 2022 versus 2025. And that created a $11,000 operational savings, and we've had about 17% increase in kilowatt rates since 2022, and we still experienced a $10,000 decrease in cost for that pump station at Grandview with that new irrigation project. So, there are some operational offsets as well that we wouldn't experience if we extend those irrigation projects. And there's we've had Todd told me he had 2 mainline fixes over at Stardust this week or in the last month. We can't get that project done soon enough because we're experiencing some heavy operational costs to keep that current irrigation system going. So again, we can manage that. We can budget for that, but it makes us less efficient. But if we did this model, it would hold our fully funded balance at approximately 46 million by year 2040, FFB approximately 77 for a 59% FFB in 2040, and hold the 40% throughout that period of time, at least 40%. So that's an option for you to recommend to the governing board as well for the governing board to consider. And really, that's it. I mean, we've got April 10th where the governing board's going to discuss all the items that are going to go into the capital improvement budget. So all the things you talked about today, they'll do some consideration on those things, and then they'll have a recommendation move forward for the April governing board meeting where they will actually vote on the 21st, or no, 23rd. They'll actually vote on the 23rd to move on the items to include into the overall annual financial plan to be voted on in May, and in terms of the capital improvement budget. And then May 21st, we'll all be happy because the budget will be approved in whatever form it gets approved. That concludes my update.
I think we have a couple of questions. Nikki?
So just a clarification, Cliff, on the capital that we're looking at for master plan. So that would be, one of those would be included. Are we saying one of those would be included in the budget?
Yes.
We have our budget now, so that would be, we would be looking at, for the current year, an additional $20, right? And then for the years out, allocated to master plan.
So, yes, I don't know that it could be one of those, or it could be some form of one of
Some
those,
form, yeah.
or it could be none of those.
Yeah,
But
right.
yes,
But
but
that's-
that would.
That's
yes.
what we would be, what you would
That's
really be looking for
part of it.
is, here's the budget without that, but we're gonna add this in to consider master plan. Okay.
Dave, did you have a question?
So as far as the operating budget, when do the committee's recommendations for the budget get included in this budget?
Good question. The thing I forgot to mention is that we're still talking about what the committees are going to recommend. Now, committee recommendations, we try and align operationally with what the committee wants, but if we have some sort of operational, we don't agree with that, the committee can recommend something that we're not recommending, but chances are that won't happen. So for example, in the golf committee, there was one recommendation that came out of the golf committee, which we're totally fine, we're totally going to build, is the committee did not want to, they wanted to have a separation between guest and public. And so what was recommended by us was a $3 increase to both, and because both were at the same price level. And the committee said, no, we want to have a separation, and so put the full increase in public, which for the most part would offset not increasing the member guest. Okay, so the full increase went to on the public side. There's about 60,000 non-member rounds, and they're split about evenly between public and guest. So there's a little bit of a negative deficit, not much, but they're also coming back because they want to consider some of the other things like range balls and potentially golf carts. So we're going to have a discussion at the next golf committee, and they'll make a recommendation on what that is, and I'll report back to this committee what the impact of those changes or potential changes could be.
Any other questions?
Million, same thing. They still have to finalize their recommendation.
So on the plan, the future plan, is there an option for a one-time assessment, or are we not considering that plan?
That can always be an option. The thing with the one-time assessment, first of all, that's a community vote, any assessment. So that would be uncharted territory for us. We've never had a special assessment here at the rec centers of Sun City West. So that's uncharted territory. So we would have to go through that process. So that wouldn't really be a budgeting process, other than we'd make sure that we had additional funds to run an potential additional vote, depending on the timing of when we decided to do that. So that could be an option for us. And the other thing to keep in mind is the things that are being presented in the modeling, the options, those are really year by year propositions, because the governing board has to continue to vote to implement them. We're just recommended it from an operational perspective, because we feel that if we can tell someone, hey, give us $100 and we can get you what you potentially want, and just pay us $20 a year, and we can get there, we feel like that's a better option. And we can use that $32 million currently in the reserve fund to help absorb those lean years where we have big capital spends, and still carry everything. So we just feel like that's the best option operationally. But yeah, that could always be considered a special assessment.
Any other questions or comments? Rick?
First of all, how much, we get a lot of feedback from the community on what they want to see in the master plan and all the new fangled things they want to do and all that. Have we gone out and asked them, well, if you want these, how are you going to pay for them? And get their opinion on what they want to see and where they want to see the increases to support these. Do we have any feedback on that?
Was that in our recent survey? General Manager will answer that.
So good question. So if you recall, if you've gone on the website, there is a tool that has the budgeting. So basically that's the gauge that's used for the consultants to come up with how much appetite the community has for funding these things. Ultimately, what will happen is you'll end up with this document of all these things that that the community is asking for, and some level of priority to those, and then the governing board will make the decision ultimately through the committees and such as to each year as to what to tackle. And what we're suggesting through this funding is, with the completion of it this coming fall, there's going to be a desire, I believe, that folks are going to want to have something happen out of that, of course, because now you have this document you spent $279,000 for. You want to take action on that. So, how that comes out is still a little bit unknown, but we do know that there'll definitely be projects in there that the community is going to be asking for, and then the data will show what those priorities will be, and then the governing board through the committees will direct us on what to do first and what to do for years to come, the next 10 years-ish. If that answers the question, I hope, maybe.
The other question I have is every year we take our overage and throw it back into the reserve, correct? This year looks like it's going to be very larger than usual. We thought about separating that and using some of that from this year to fund the master plan for next year or in the future.
So when it rolls back into the reserve, so it's projected, there's a projected overage. It's not projected at what it currently is, because I know we've got some expenses that are going to be coming in that we just haven't paid for yet in terms of the overage and operating. So it's rolled into the reserve fund, and it's calculated into the fully funded balance percentage moving forward. So it is incorporated into that.
Go ahead.
I look at this as a question, first of all, about the master plan and the amount, and then the way we fund it. So it's sort of two, going down a linear route. First of all, the master plan. So I've completed that survey that you have and filled it in, and I think that's really helpful. I hope as many people in the community, for those that are listening, please do that, because it's valuable for the committee to do that. So I'm trying to understand yet, the 6 million is a little nebulous to me, and not the fact that we may not need that amount, but how did they determine it's $6 million, not $10 million or $15 million? I mean, I'm just trying to get my arms around how that number came at 6 million when the master plan isn't fully developed yet, because that's going to be the first question we get asked in the community. If we're asking for $6 million, what does that include? Then I think we can get to the part of how that's funded. And I have some thoughts upon that, but I really kind of like to get that question first answered.
Yeah, I would say the 6 million is, there's nothing directly tied to that, because we don't have the results. It's just something to put into the modeling. So if I told you that so it really is like 15.3 million when you incorporate all of the funds that could be potentially available. If you add the 6 million into it, it's the 15 million that really is, okay, does that sound like a number that would be needed to handle some capital projects? Again, when you put that in the perspective of a rec center, I believe Sun City's got 30 to 35 million that they're going to be spending on a new rec center, the one that dilapidated to the point where they have to rebuild it. It's not a lot of money. So we're fortunate here that we've kept up on our facilities, and they may be dated, but we've kept the roofs and a maintenance program and the things that have to be maintained within the facilities to a point where we can remodel and restructure. So 6 million is just, I can't say that it was just like 15 million is really the number. How do we get to 15 million? And this is how we could get there.
Yeah, and I would just add, just to Cliff's point, 15 million, yes, it's a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of building things, it's not. So what we're proposing through this is we're trying to set the organization up for success from the master plan from the beginning. 5 years from now, there might be a need for other stuff and a strong desire of, hey, out of that came this potential project, and gosh, we really want to do that now, so we need to have a different plan. But we can only model so much. So it was a starting point, and the 15 million we felt was a good place to start with. Now, I mean, if the community and the committees and the board thought, well, we should really inject more, or we should inject less, there's a bit of an unknown. But the alternative is we don't get started at all and wait until we actually have it, and then we're kind of a year out, and the value of time and money is lost. So what we know for sure, there's going to be things that are going to come out of it. But to your point, do we know, is that the right number? No, we don't know. We're trying to just get the ball rolling for something.
And that's back in line with, as well, when we look at the modeling, we put it together every year. If we have an excess, if the reserve fund performs in the market better than we anticipate, maybe that gets pulled back to 4 years or 3 years, or maybe something comes out that says, oh, you know what, we need to fund an additional 15 million. How are we going to do that? Special assessment or whatever. Those decisions can all be made. So that's the good thing as well about this proposal, is it gives us flexibility that we can switch tracks, we can do things differently, and it allows us to start raising funds for it before we actually have the plan, because we know that we'll need funds.
And this is my second point or comment I wanted to make was on this whole thing that you've presented. I appreciate the different modeling of two different models of how we would fund this. I just want to come out and say, I think the idea of delaying anything on the improvements in the golf is just the wrong approach. And maybe if we can come to some consensus on that as a committee, it'll take your time away from focusing on that potential aspect, because I think that's just not the approach we've taken here in the past of trying to delay projects. And that has, we look at our communities and surrounding communities that have done that, and then now they're in trouble. And I would hate to go off that pathway we've done with the modeling already, that Mickey and them did with the modeling for the reserve fund. I just don't think that's the right route. So I'd be for at least taking that one off the table right now.
Dan?
Yes.
I concur, especially when you consider that those capital projects on the irrigation reduce our operational costs. It's just insane to put them off. So I would say rule that out.
Mickey?
Just one more thing, and that is on starting. You have to start someplace. So the 15 million bucks, I think that we could go, you could model out a much larger number, right? You could model out a much larger number. You could model out less, right? But the fact of the matter is that if we want to do what the master plan is designed to do, which is find ways to make our community even more vibrant in the future than it is today, more modern, more attractive, we have to start someplace. And so I think that 15 million is a good start. But I also think that we should begin those conversations that 15 million may just be a start.
Very good. Anybody else? Any other comments? Chris, you were making a lot of notes?
I take a lot of notes.
Take a lot of notes, okay.
I'll bring it up now. I think I was going to bring it a little bit later, but again, my $20 a year idea, I just jotted down some of the things I read on the idea wall, right? These are not things that are going to happen or not happen. These are just, people said on the idea wall that they'd like nicer clubhouses, better bands, remodel the courtyard, some fancy IT options and websites and apps, maybe indoor pickleball, maybe a restaurant, welcoming center, modernize the library with, social meeting and area, maybe a teaching kitchen, better sound systems, maybe some shaded parking with solar. People are saying that they want things, and this costs money, and I think it's a pretty reasonable upgrade that we're asking for. Now, my idea of reasonable might not be everybody else's idea. I had 4 groups of people that live in our community. There are some people that can't afford this increase. There's other people that are fundamentally against an increase, and there's others that can rationalize such an increase, and then there's others that said, "Come on, bring it on!" Right? We want more, way more. I always thought that there were 4 groups like that. There's actually a 5th group. There's a group that not interested in our community. Right? We lose. We lost those people. They drove through the community. They heard we had 7 golf courses. They saw our rec centers, but they went down the street across the block on the other side of town because they liked what they saw there. And maybe they weren't as cost conscious or anything of the sort. So this is so hard to say, oh, come on, it's only $20, right? Because to me, it's only $20. Right? But that's not to everybody, and I'm sensitive to that. But I think that we really have to not maintain our community. We have to continue to grow and improve our community. So when I look at this, in my head, it's a no-brainer. I mean, but let's just move forward and add the additional $20. But we have to be sensitive to everybody else. I just don't want to. I don't want my judgment to lean towards this group that can't afford it, or completely towards this group that says, let's add $100 a year or $200 a year and make some significant changes. We just have to find that right balance for it. But again, I'll repeat, the last thing I want to do is ask everybody what they want and then tell them we can't afford to do it. That's what I wrote on my notes.
Thank you, Chris. I could almost read that from here. Anybody else have any more comments about this? All right. Cliff, I think you are out of the hot seat at this point. And I think I'd just like to get a general impression from the committee as you've looked at these 2 different plans and you've seen the $20 plan versus the $5 plan, understanding the pros and cons of, as Chris identified, $20 to some people can be a very significant expense. The other side of that being delaying the golf courses and putting that off and having a $2.5 million spend down the road can be a significant expense and potentially maybe frivolous because we were being short-sighted in our views. But I'd kind of like to hear from the committee what your thoughts are at this point about these 2 plans. Which plan would you think is the most acceptable, Bill?
I don't prefer to delay any of these things. I think they've already been voted on to be built and to be paid for by the reserve fund, and that needs to be done. Whether it's the irrigation, whether it's the platform tennis, whether it's what, I think delaying those is not really appropriate, and I would not favor that at all.
So your vote would be for Plan A?
Yes.
Rick?
I don't agree with the delay in the irrigation systems because if you look at our golf revenue, that is the largest variable revenue source we have. We have to keep that up along with the maintenance of those golf courses. The other thing, Cliff, I think this is totally off the wall, but you look at here in 2040, most of us won't be here, or we won't be able to take advantage of all this stuff. So I think it's great when we modeled out there, but when you put, dimes to dollars, we have to look what's going to happen the next 5 or 6 years, because that's what's going to affect this group here.
Yeah, thank you. So I'd put you down for Plan A. Yeah.
I think I reiterated before, I'll reiterate what I said. I think delaying anything of capital improvements that we talked about on the golf courses would be a wrong approach. So of the options we have right now, would have to be Plan A.
Thank you. Dave?
I agree. Of the options that we have now, I'd vote for Plan A.
Chris?
Yeah, I like Plan A. I want to also say that I don't like a special assessment. I was pretty pleased to hear that we haven't had one in the history of Sun City West, and I'd like to not have a special assessment. So, yeah, Plan A for me is a pretty reasonable plan.
Thank you. John?
Plan A for me.
Good.
I go for Plan A also. My only concern is I don't know that $6 million is going to be enough.
Mickey?
Plan A, 6 million, actually 15 might not be enough, but it's a start. And to the point of affordability, $20, I think that $20 a year, despite the fact that some will find that too much, is a very reasonable compromise, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. John?
Make it unanimous, Plan A.
Plan A.
The thing that's important is we have to look out for what's the benefit, what's the best interest of the association as a whole, and understand that unfortunately there are people that are going to have problems with that increase. But we have to look out for what's in the best interest of the association moving forward.
That's right. And I think it's up to the Budget and Finance Committee to help decide what things we spend our hard-earned money on and what things we don't, which I think we've done a pretty good job of breaking that down very well. So with that being said, I'm going to move on to 5.01. Any additional comments? And I'll start on this side down here. Any additional comments?
None.
None? Mickey?
None.
None.
John?
Good job, Cliff. None. Well, I guess that was one.
Chris?
No, no more.
Dave DeWitt?
No more.
Okay. Dave Pro?
No.
Rick?
No.
Bill?
No.
Thank you. Well, that was very good. All right, so it is 10:37. Our next Budget and Finance Committee is on April the 7th here in the lecture hall. And at that point, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 10:37. Thank you very much.